Alright, so SCP Foundation versus the Wanderer's Library by SCP Illustrated. As always, I'm going to be leaving the link to the original video and channel down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure that you check them out. It's been a while since I've seen stuff that's focused on the SCP Foundation particularly, and I'm pretty sure I saw a little bit of the Wanderer's Library, which is like a lot of knowledge. I think it was the one of the groups as well, the Snake Hand? Or Serpent? No, Serpent's Hand, right? I think that's what it was called. Actually can go into that library, but you know, obviously that library getting a little odd. I don't really remember too much about it, but it seemed like either the Foundation, I read in the description, it had like maybe 2 lines saying that the SCP Foundation found a way in. So what's gonna happen, right? Who's gonna end up coming out on top? But in any case, before we get into the actual video, don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me a lot. Hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I do upload. Without wasting too much more time, let's go ahead and get right into the video.
Good day everyone and welcome back. The Wanderer's Library is a terrifying but amazing place, a great hub of some awesome stories, and did you know it's the official sister site of the SCP Wiki? Today, 2 titans will go head to head. Not long ago, a group of mundane mortals mistakenly thought they could categorize the concept of knowledge, that they could contain the nexus of worlds, that the Foundation could lock up the platonic concept of a library. It was a learning experience at least. On that day, a doctor pored over notes and maps, looking out the window of the temporary base of operations that had been set up for the incursion. Not an invasion, not an assault, an incursion. That's the phrasing the doctor preferred. Ideally, it'll be more or less a scouting mission, something to gauge the relative scale of the library.
When I remember, that library was said to be endless, right? Because it just has so much knowledge, and obviously, you know, things are always going to be coming up as far as like discovering new things and all that. But endless, from what I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong.
3 groups coming from 3 separate points. Triangles were meaningful shapes, right? The researchers weren't sure if they were or not. They weren't entirely sure of any of this, as a matter of fact. Of course, only the very top of the command chain knew that. Everyone else was told there were measured risks involved. It wasn't exactly a lie, just stretching the truth. Everybody took their stations. 3 entrances in 3 doorways in 3 small towns, each in contact with the others, each planned to the minute.
Wait, how would they have found these doorways? I don't remember exactly how someone can even enter. Dude, the artwork is pretty legit though, right? I don't remember how somebody would get there. I think it was one of those things that was just supposed to be like shrouded in mystery. Some people knew, but they don't say that how to do it. So I mean, unless they had some inside information from somebody, I'm not really sure.
The library was, as it always is. I would say it was a day like any other, if there were proper days in the library, or at least across the entire library. Sometimes night is necessary. The library bustled as it always did, sweeping grand shelves stretching for miles, stacked with the knowledge of eternity. Some towered higher than the sky, others were barely a footstool's height. Every so often, one might stumble across a small clearing, filled with couches or tables, or whatever else the library's visitors brought from elsewhere. Speaking of which, at any given time, beings from across time and space were scattered across the stacks, each unique, but also not. An unfortunate alchemist, a skittish goblin, a peculiar cat, a soulless shapeshifter, an actual alien, a literal deer, a blindfolded witch, so many different lives meeting in the nexus of knowledge. Throughout the library stood doors, each unique in itself, and each a literal door to innumerable ways. Each way had its own knock, and each knock was unique in itself. Nothing was repeated in the library, except when it was. There was one corner of the library, like most others, a clearing with a few tables and desks whose origins spanned across hundreds of years. This was one of the many sitting spaces, and normally wouldn't be of special note in the library. That is, until the moment a certain door opened. There was a hard fast knock on a tall wooden door set between 2 shelves.
So it's as far as like the specific knocking pattern that can get you access. But as far as things like the cat, the deer, the witch, the alien, all that come in here, did some of them get transported there accidentally, involuntarily, or maybe they were specifically going there? This is where the confusing thing comes in.
It creaked a bit before a heavy boot kicked it open, and 36 black-clad agents of Red Team swarmed in, weapons raised. 700 feet away, another door burst open much the same way, with Blue Team's entrance, and 300 feet from that one, another door with Green Team's entry. A single shot was fired, and screams began to ring out. A field commander shouted as the door slammed shut. The doctor called over the intercom demanding somebody retry the knock. In a moment the door opened again, and it opened to a different expanse of shelves. Agents rushed in. Unfortunately, this was a different way, and this corner of the library was restricted. An unfamiliar human voice began to wail as the doors slammed shut again. In moments, the library was in chaos. The shot was taken by a newer agent. Nobody's quite sure who exactly. It happened so quickly. Who got spooked and fired at something. The moment the shot struck a shelf, the library exploded into motion. There was a palpable shift in the air as the library came to life. The group huddled close together, tranquilizers and proper shots flying in focused bursts. A small black cat vanished into thin air the moment she was noticed, and a woman that looked almost like a schoolteacher dove behind a Chesterfield. A man in a long coat drew his own pistol before being gunned down by agents, his body falling limp but bloodless on the marble floors. In the distance, more screams rang out. Agents shouted to one another, realizing the door behind them was gone. Someone authoritative called for them to find the others and regroup, and they started off into the maze of shadows.
This probably would have been the worst scenario possible, right? As far as like going in somewhere, especially if you're going to like a different dimension like this, especially like the Wonders Library, the escape route, incredibly crucial, right? And obviously, I don't think they're going to be having so much contact with anybody outside of this realm. I don't, like, nobody within the SCP Foundation, for like even those higher ups that knew about this. But dude, it would be incredibly, I guess, to put it nicely, stressful, right? Especially if that door behind you that you came through, and you can probably see back into the world, our world, and you see it close. And then I think you said that the door opens, but you're just starting to see an expanse of like hallways of books and all that. And oh my god, I mean, I saw like a little, what is it, like one of those guys from like Narnia, like the goat man type thing. You know, this guy in the coat, the cat, kind of seeing, or I'm interested to see like what kind of characters are here, right? And I know, what was it? Yeah, the Serpentine is the only one I knew who knew how to have access. I didn't know there was all these other creatures or things, right? That also. Well, I mean, it'd be kind of like simple to say like you would expect something like this, but I didn't expect it, right? So, but I mean, it's cool to see that. It's cool to see that.
Shelves. And then the librarians came. The agents were scattered, gunfire and dozens upon dozens of voices screaming and calling out among the stacks. Occasionally gunfire rang out and was swiftly silenced. One of the Red Navigators was in a panic, desperately trying to reopen the shut door. Several other agents huddled close, ready to lay down suppressing fire if anything else approached.
I understand it's the SCP Foundation, and you know, you never know what you're going to go up against, and you probably not going to have a second chance. So you want to be as cautious as possible. But going in there, and I think they said that they were shooting, not the best way to go in there. I mean, I feel like you probably could have entered in there normally. Then again, not knowing what's going to be on the other side, you might not need to be as aggressive, I guess, right? I mean, for all you know, these people couldn't have cared less of who you were. But the fact that you just started engaging them, then obviously, hey, these people are obviously a threat. I got to get out of here, right? So now, and then obviously now you're going to have the librarians coming after them, which I don't really remember too much about them. It does not seem like it's going to be a fun time, though.
He didn't care. He just needed the damned way to open. There was a click, and it finally swung open. The others looked back as he fell through into a hall of words, his voice perfectly silenced as old, grey light poured into the library like fumes. After several moments, an unfamiliar arm reached back out, closing the door behind him. They repeated the knock over and over, each time afterward opening to a different place. A nearly solid wall of flame, an impossibly cold desert, an abandoned apartment covered in fungus. Everything seemed lost. The doctor called his superiors. They would be unhappy, but unsurprised. Researchers at each entry point struggled to stay on the same page, each racking their brains trying to figure out a way to salvage the day. The doors refused to work properly, the agents were divided, the commanders were silent, the phones were busy. It was a nightmare. Back in the Project HQ, the doctor hung up the phone, expression grim and sick. Almost a lifetime away, an agent from Blue was in a panic, crouched between a bookcase and a ratty old armchair. She peeked out to see a tall, mouthless figure practically appear out of thin air among her colleagues. It swung a heavy brass lantern with an eerie, silent grace, taking another agent's head clean off. It was unfazed by gunfire, silently neutralizing the threat posed to the library, like a white blood cell would neutralize a germ. The cowering agent squeezed her eyes shut, the sound of carnage and gunfire ringing in her ears for a further 8 seconds, before suddenly stopping. Trembling, she opened her eyes. The library before her was immaculate. The MTF and everything else they brought, gone. Standing several feet before her was the figure, mouthless, a lantern hanging from its hand, or rather the lantern hung from one arm. It silently stood before her, holding its hand out. The agent took it and was gone. The door...
But could that have been avoided if they didn't come in there shooting, right? Or was it because that they struck... Do you remember when he said when they struck the bookcase or some kind of bookcase, something, the library itself, not the actual people or things that were in there already. And then that's when everything came to life, right? I think that was probably why, because it was like kind of a damage to property type thing. So if they didn't do that, would that have happened? As far as the librarians coming out, right?
Was shut tightly again. Agents and researchers shouted amongst themselves, trying to figure out what happened. Minutes passed before the way burst open on its own. A small group of agents stumbling out. They scrambled and shouted, confused, ragged, hurt. It seemed like they'd been gone for days. Before anybody could react, one screamed, dragged back into the door before it slammed one last time, the old grimy handle falling off. Elsewhere, Green Team was completely fragmented. One splinter made the attempt to move out to try and find the other doors. It started with about 20 agents. Then about 16, 11, 10, 8, 5, 3. Then there was only one agent left. He began to run, the stacks growing taller, the air growing heavier, the light dimmer. It began to feel almost haunted, but not. It was the kind of feeling that you get when you know a place was once beloved, but has been silent for far too long. He turned a corner, finding himself among towering shelves that stretched taller than anything, with books filled with forgotten stories. Lost, he saw a towering figure atop a shelf, a regal beast with a man's face, looking down with bored curiosity. The beast smiled when the agent laid eyes upon it, eyes filled with thirst and delight.
I just realized if they realized that when they entered in and their initial exit was probably going to be compromised, right? Or something, they probably weren't going to go through it. I feel like they should have some more backup plans, and if they couldn't have backup plans, it wouldn't be a good idea to even go in there in the first place. This, though, thinking of like this kind of shelves and seeing this big dude right here. Oh, it's got the thing on my nose again. You see that? I thought I got rid of it. It's like a little discoloration here with the camera or something. But seeing this big dude, freaky.
The agent turned to run and ran headlong into a tall, crowned creature with a smile carved into its face. He began to weep, collapsing against the books, terrified and doomed. Somebody who couldn't be recognized said words of comfort to the lost agent, who realized he had made a mistake. The other strange figures watched as a librarian climbed down, watching politely as the agent tried to gather himself. In a moment, the crowned thing scooped the agent up like a baby and leaned up, handing him off to the librarian. A pair of agents ran, brothers chased by shapes and movement they didn't dare look at directly. They turned a corner, The first agent bowling over a frightened child with iridescent eyes, the other jumping over. To where? They never really considered. They just needed to escape. They ran for a long time, longer than they realized. Eventually, they realized that the books were all gone, and the world around them had changed. Light played above them, and they looked up to see a vast thing, like a titanic pillar, a cage filled with innumerable lanterns planted atop its head, branches like antlers stretching with more light stretched from the cage, twinkling like a tree filled with stars. The living thing's many arms reached throughout the hall, the scraping of quills on paper filling the brothers' ears. It looked down on them, and they fled. In the end, nobody knew what happened. Like in everything else, every single person who was part of the incursion had a different story. Some seemed similar, until one read into the subtleties. Others had entirely unique experiences that no one else shared. Most contradicted the others. Recordings of the day only helped muddy the waters further. Some showed chaotic images and sounds of alien worlds. Others involved people who had not even been on the trip, or had even been born yet. Some of those involved had vivid recollections for the rest of their lives. Some remembered nothing, but entering and exiting the doors. It was like time skipped them over when they went through the way. The most peculiar thing happened.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say like maybe time distortion plays an effect when you're in there, right? But obviously messing with your mind, dude. I want to see more exploration as far as the Wanderer's Library, or maybe someone who can go there without necessarily being targeted. I mean, someone who's not gonna be in there like trying to mess up things, but just to get an idea of kind of like who is in there, what are we dealing with here? I mean, the creativity as far as what could be in there, who could be in there, it could be anything, right?
Happened 13 days later. A group stumbled through Blue Team's door dressed in the tatters of their equipment, their hair greying and their bodies scarred and decrepit. They claimed to have been trapped in the library for decades and only just were able to leave. They each told fantastic tales of their own, of giants who stoked fires, of fantastic lost countries, of black dogs, of breathing ideas, of things that had no words to describe. Many still remain, lost souls who broke the rules. They must be punished for their transgressions. And they will, just as countless others have been before them, and countless more will after. It is a learning experience.
Alright, so obviously they broke the rule, and I think it was the rule was when they shot at one of the bookcases or something, damaging the library itself. So when you don't follow the rules, obviously the librarians come in. Dude, oh god, like I would be more curious to see what those three people in that picture went through, or like just to hear them describing something, right? And just kind of see like what was going on there, like what did they see? What, dude? If it is endless, then man, technically you could write anything and everything in there. Oh my god, you see that right there? Why does that keep happening? Oh, whatever. Oh my god, dude, that was so interesting. I mean, as far as they literally went in, and I understand SCP universe, but then like immediately we need to get out of here. I would have suggested maybe put something in front of the door to make sure it doesn't close, like maybe, I don't know, anything, but I don't think that would have had much effect. I think it would have broken whatever they put to try to prevent that from happening. I wonder what happened to the dude who went back through the door, but then an unfamiliar hand closed it right behind him. This should be a movie, man. It should be the only movie SCP wise that I saw. I heard that there was supposed to be some kind of SCP movie, but that it was getting canceled or was delayed. But the only other one that's somewhat SCP related was one. I think it was called. I think it's been out already for a while. General Crumb or General Grum. The dude's got like the Plague Doctor mask, and it's like the SCP-049, right? The Plague Doctor. I haven't seen it, although I kind of want to see it now. I think I might do that today, actually. Maybe, a couple beers, watch it. If it is out, if it never came out, I don't remember. I'll have to look it up after this. In any case, I mean, dude, I like seeing these versus ones when it's like different factions, man. And I really want to start exploring more. I understand that the shark punching center one was like a troll, but it'd be interesting to see what somebody was thinking when they wrote that. But In any case, that's kind of all what I have to say in this video. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for continuing to come back. And I'll see you all on the next video. Bye.